So I watched David Lynch's theater, and he talked about a number. So he says, what is today's number? Or something like that. It's a very interesting thing of language and procedure that he does. He takes the bottle of, it's a large bottle of balls that are numbered 1 through 10, and he turns the giant bottle upside down. I think you call it a bottle. It's probably another thing, you could maybe say glass container that has a lid on the top that screws on there. So he dumps it upside down. He shows it to the camera. But first he says, here is today's number, or something like that. Or today we're doing the numbers, or something. I don't really know exactly the language, but the language is always the same. So it's kind of scripted. And then he says, at the end, it's written, what will tomorrow's number be? So I guess 7. But I guessed 7 today, and it went to 9. The other day, I guessed 3, and it was a 2. And the next day, it was a 3. So I was a day ahead on the numbers. So I guessed 7 today, and it was a 9. But I was asked to guess the number for tomorrow. So what number will be tomorrow? You could say, maybe. And I said it would be 7. So if we look at what the numbers are with David Lynch, I'm guessing 7 for tomorrow. And today is the 25th. I can't really show it, but I showed it earlier in the vlog. So he dumps it upside down, and he kind of whirls it around, and then he reaches in. He says, pick a number. Right? The language is it's done a very specific way. It's a very specific type of language. So the language is today's number is. So that's the language. Today's number is. And it was 9 today, which is the 25th of May of 2022. But he doesn't say 25th. He says today is May 25. I think he might say 2022. And then he goes into today's number is, pick a number. He gets into the whole script. And it's kind of the same thing. Now, the weather report is more improv, I can tell. But it's not tightly scripted. So it's a little improv. A little bit. There's probably some script. He might be reading it, maybe not. But he throws in all along the way. So he throws in his own script in there. But when he goes over to the next one, which is today's number is, that's going to be about the same. Almost. And you look at the timing, everything's about the same on time. So he scripts things, for one thing, because back then when you had film, you couldn't mess up. You only had a little bit of time to tell the story. So he would write out the script perfectly and then follow it so he wouldn't waste film, because they didn't have a lot. In AFI back in the day when it was in the mansion and he was there, they only had a little bit of film to work with. They had enough, but they didn't have an unlimited supply. They weren't doing digital. So that film quality, I'm going to get this right here, it stayed with it. I think you can find things. And with a script, it's important, but finding things is sometimes better. You learn to be a good investigator along the way. And you can try to do prophecy and then follow it, which is script is prophecy, and then you follow it. You come up with the idea, it's a dream, and then you start to follow it, and that's fun. But life is a dream, and it gets kind of weird. See, everything is done and everything has a purpose and a reason. But I don't feel the country is on the right track. This is Freedom Church right here. I think the church can be on the right track, but I don't think the church is the country. I think there's a separation between church and state, right? State's over here, but then you got church and state. According to the law, you cannot mix church and state. It's against the law. Just like it's very difficult for a state official that's representing the law to trespass on a reservation, Native American reservation. They're not supposed to. That land is private land that is allotted to them. They have to get special permission from the tribal leaders of that reservation. And if they say no, then they have to go away. But there is a separation between church and state, and it'll have to remain that way, or we going to war. Now that's a big Slurpee. So today must be some type of Slurpee event, and they're slurping it up right here at your local 7-Eleven. I don't condone cigarettes at all for any actor ever. Now, herbals are okay if you're doing an actual movie, but you don't want to smoke. I tried it. It does not work. It interferes with your sense of memory. It's bad. It's horrible. Highly against it. It'll kill you dead. Do not smoke if you're an actor. But if you have to do it in a scene, ask the director if you can do what's called herbal. It's an herbal cigarette that's also bad. It's bad because it's got herbs in it, but it does not get you addicted. And they put different types of herbs. They used to have a name for it. It doesn't taste very good. I did it for a few shows, and I would switch back and forth. So I would smoke herbals through the rehearsals, and it had a weird kind of, when you'd flick it, it had a pack just like a regular pack. It looked a little like American Spirits, and you would flick, the ash and all that stuff, and it wouldn't flick the same way for the performance. Well, for the show. So by the time the show started, I would smoke real cigarettes. Because you can smell the real cigarette, you can smell the tobacco, and it would be a real cigarette, and it would only take place during the performance only, which is weird because I wasn't used to the nicotine, but I was used to the action of it. That's kind of hard to do. Now, when I played Stanley, I smoked filterless Lucky Strikes, and I think I switched from Lucky Strikes to another brand, Camel, or filterless Camel, and then to Lucky Strike. No filter at all. And that got me addicted. And I smoked for about 10 years off and on, but serious smoking, where it was, I'd go and get a pack, was 6 years straight. And that was mostly Camel Silvers, and then eventually switching over to American Spirit, which was a yellow and blue pack. I was able to quit through a powerful prayer out in Parkman, Maine. A Vietnam vet who was very close to God knew that I was having trouble because I was born with pneumonia. And he decided to pray with me. The next day, I had no cravings for cigarettes at all. They actually made me sick. And I threw them away, and I went 15 months without a single cigarette. Cold turkey. Didn't gain a lot of weight or anything. Had no cravings for it at all. Now, after that 15 months, I did relapse for about a month before I met Angel, and I drove from Maine to Texas. For about a month, I relapsed off and on. I was a little nervous when I got here. So I was smoking, I think, American Spirit. And then I finally because she was such a Baptist, I just got rid of the cigarettes. Before baptism, I got rid of a lot of things. Then what happened was, no, I quit. So from 2013, almost next year, which will be 2023, will be 10 years of not a single cigarette. And I think if they asked me to smoke, if I did something, I'd have to have like a long conversation with them to talk about how we would do it and not get addicted. Because the most addictive drug is cigarettes. They say that heroin addicts will leave the rehab. Coke addicts, speed addicts, all that stuff, they'll leave the rehab. They'll be rehabilitated and they'll leave smoking, which is also bad. That's a real nice car. Just, I'm trying to see where it's at. There it goes. It's going real slow. Denton County Transportation Authority. Called the A train or DCTA. Haven't seen it. It goes to Denton, so they've got a whole system set up that goes right here in the Louisville area, which is where I'm at. All the way to Denton, which is, I've taken that train before when I used to wait tables when I first got back from New York. I'd get on a similar train if I needed to stay the night. One time I'd stay at, look at this, I don't even know where I'm at. I'd stay at Central Market, usually on the patio until the early train came in. Then I would go back to Euless, which was called the Trinity Railway. So I'd take the Trinity Railway from Euless to downtown Dallas. I'd wait tables. Then I'd jump back on the Trinity Railway and I would go back to Euless. If I missed the last train out, which would be 11 o'clock at night because they held me too long at the tables at the restaurant, then I would get on one of those types of trains and I'd head over to a Central Market. And I'd stay there until the early morning train because it was kind of out of Dallas, out of the way. Didn't really have the money for motel because I didn't want to blow what I made that night on the motel. And I would just hang out at the patio area of Central Market until, back then they didn't have cameras. This was probably, well, they had cameras, but not that many. Not like they do now. This was probably 2003. About 2003. So they had cameras, but not like on all the patios. They didn't have like this whole search system where if you go anywhere, you would be on camera for a while. So if you stayed in one spot for too long, you'd have to. It'd be hard nowadays because everywhere there's a camera. There's a camera everywhere. They're just everywhere. You go to that lot, there's probably 100 cameras. There's probably a camera right there. There's cameras right there. They didn't have those back in 2003. Not like that. There's probably cameras over there. I mean, it's crazy. And it's going to get crazier to the point where, well, they're going to get to the point where you don't even have to drive your car. It'll be like a robot using a camera, there'll be cameras on cars. Camera. Marsha. $9.99 a month for 24-hour fitness. That's what they're saying. First month is free. You just pay $10 a month. You can use their shower. They got pools, all kinds of good stuff. You just pick up the weights and just lose all the weight. Turn it all into muscle. So now we're at the point where I talk about The Batman. Matt Reeves, very good director. Here we go right here. They used a Nirvana song. Big fan, loved it. I think it's one of the best Batmans in a long time. Finally, they got something right. The DC, not Marvel, DC. So it's a DC thing, which means detective, something, the C stands for something. Cartoon or something like that. But it's not a cartoon, it's live action. But Robert Pattinson's in it. He plays probably the best Batman so far. Now, when I say the best Batman, he's very human. He gets scared. Like, he goes like this, whoa, 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 when he's moving around. You never see Batman get scared. Very good. Lots of good acting choices. I thought it was, I'm going to have to say, probably better than Christian Bale. I didn't think it was better than Dark Knight. So Dark Knight's better with Heath Ledger. But I thought Paul Dano in The Batman, I thought it was very scary and it was creepy. I fell asleep a couple of times because I watched it in the middle of the night and I tried to stay awake. I'm going to have to watch it again. But it was real good. I asked myself, would I fell asleep in The Dark Knight in the middle of the night? And I don't know. Because Christopher Nolan is also a mad genius. But very good on Matt Reeves. And DC actually stands for Detective Comic, or comics. I don't always hit my S's because I save them. Because I go psst, 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 psst. It's Detective Comics. Hello? Hello? This is where it led me. He said the other side. I don't know. Then he said he was going to come here, but I don't I hear something. Hello?